Nobody is watching the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And this is a problem, according to a bunch of pinheads in the access media. They don't like the Disney Star Wars, the out-of-touch, bizarre, and oftentimes grotesque representation of the Star Wars universe has finally reached rock bottom, where absolutely no one seems to care about the Disney Star Wars franchise.
Yes, yes.
And let me clarify, I do mean the Disney Star Wars franchise, because everything George Lucas is still beloved. Everything afterwards, not so much. We can see this clearly with the May the 4th celebration. This is Star Wars Day, and it is showing everyone that once again, the fans of the Star Wars universe despise the Disney Wars franchise. It has failed completely. And yes, I meant to say Disney Wars because Disney Star Wars is not Star Wars anymore. It's just an entity that Disney wears where they've basically skinned alive the Star Wars franchise, put on its skin, and walked around like it was the person, it was the entity. It's not. The corpse of Star Wars by George Lucas is rotting in the past, and nothing that Disney can do can change that. Now we see this with a Polygon article where they bemoan. They say, nobody is watching the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And that's a problem. A new Nielsen report reveals some troubling trends in a galaxy far, far away. Happy Star Wars Day to all who celebrate, they write. If you're a fan of the original trilogy, the prequels, or even some of the spin-off shows like Andor or the Clone Wars, you've got plenty to celebrate. But one group that apparently isn't celebrating this May 4th, sequel trilogy enjoyers, because according to a new report, they don't really exist. Color me unsurprised. A new report from Nielsen and published by Variety reveals that nobody is watching the most recent trio of the core Star Wars films. Because they're not Star Wars films. They are Disney Wars films. Nobody is ever going to care about Disney Wars, Disney Star Wars. These idiots took which was perhaps one of the most beloved and greatest of all modern mythologies of the Western world, the Star Wars IP by George Lucas, and they took it and they pissed on it, they destroyed it with their greedy, man-hating female executives and the sycophants that followed them. They took it piece by piece and intentionally and methodically destroyed it. From the deconstruction of the original trilogy and the disrespecting of the original characters, the OGs, Disney Star Wars slapped around the fans of the franchise. They took the beloved and triumphant heroes of the original Star Wars trilogy and destroyed them. You had Luke, who was once the hopeful farm boy, become Jedi legend, who risked everything to save his father on the chance that perhaps there was something good left in him, and turned him into a suicidal hermit who wanted the Jedi to die and tried to kill his own nephew on the chance, the possibility that there might be bad in him. Then there was Han Solo, the lovable scoundrel who grew into a hero, who selflessly sacrificed himself for his friends, for the people that he loved, including the starfire of his heart, Princess Leia, and instead turned him into a piece of crap deadbeat dad who ditched his own family and reverted back to his original factory default setting of the original Star Wars film, back into the uncaring smuggler. And they took Princess Leia, the unbreakable leader, and turned her into a nothing burger who barely even existed in the Disney sequel trilogy. Kathleen Kennedy went out of her way to piss on the OG Star Wars fans. We'll never forget her declaring that the Force was now female, and nor will we forget the steps that she took to ensure the demise of the franchise by replacing all of the classic Star Wars universe and characters with a new dystopian, hardly barely Star Wars universe, where the entire galaxy was nothing more than a grimdark, hopeless dystopian universe that felt like a bad 1984 reboot.
Put a chick in it, make her gay!
All that hopeful, mythic space opera that George Lucas brought to us was wiped out. The fake Star Wars universe, thanks to Disney, went out of its way to completely and utterly erase everything good about the Star Wars universe. They got rid of all the triumph that the characters had undergone and fought and bled and died for in the original trilogies. They got rid of the ultimate victory in Return of the Jedi and replaced it with a new republic that reeked of bureaucratic incompetence. A bunch of pinheads and boneheads who ran a galaxy into the ground, and it left it feeling like nothing more than just a moral gray sludge that wasn't really that much better than the Empire that had come before it. That was on purpose. Everything good, everything wonderful about the George Lucas saga that was Star Wars was wiped out in just the very first Disney Star Wars film, The Force Awakens. And it only got worse from there. The rest of the Disney Wars adventure gave us no joy. The stakes never truly resolve. There's nothing to get into with new Star Wars. Which got me wondering, why would anyone actually want to watch the Disney sludge that they were putting out? Who wants to revisit a galaxy far, far away that felt like nothing more than an endless, joyless grind? And of course, if that wasn't enough, the rest of the Star Wars franchise that Disney created, following the main saga, devolved into nothing more than lesbian space witches and laughably bad plots. Which makes it even more hilariously funny watching this Access Media still try and shill for Disney Star Wars. I mean, what are they talking about? How that's a problem that people aren't watching the Disney sludge. They point out here that along generational lines, they said, we see some surprising trends. Gen Alpha and the baby boomers share the love of Mandalorian. Well, Gen Z loves animated The Clone Wars, which of course was Lucas up until the very end, and millennials and Gen X both indulge in the grounded political thriller of Andor. They write, again, no love for The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, or The Rise of Skywalker. And again, why would they? Now, Polygon writes that this isn't actually a surprise. Well, the Disney era performed well in theaters, coasting on the love of the original Star Wars franchise. The Last Jedi divided fans. It didn't divide fans, it destroyed the fan base. The overwhelming majority of people who watched that movie hated it. And only the shills and only the non-Disney fans actually liked it. And then they said, and everyone hated The Rise of Skywalker. You know, that was just the final moment of despair when everyone realized there was nothing left. And they wrote that the latter left such a bad taste in the fandom's collective mouth that it may have retroactively ruined even the solidly enjoyable The Force Awakens. Wrong, Polygon. The Force Awakens was a piece of crap. It didn't even feel like Star Wars. People put up with it because they loved Star Wars. They had loved the original trilogies. Many loved the prequel trilogies, and everyone wanted to see what was going to happen next. Most people, though, didn't realize that the original Lucas treatment for the episodes 7, 8, and 9 had been dismissed by Disney, and instead we got this dystopian, weird crap of The Force Awakens instead. Then they wrote, this might not seem like the biggest problem facing Star Wars. After all, the sequel still crushed at the box office, and clearly there's plenty of appetite for the franchise overall. Wrong. Everything about Star Wars is retracting. The franchise is essentially dead now. They write, the data does, though, seem to confirm a sneaking suspicion we've held for a while now. The sequel trilogy failed to set up the franchise for future success. No, it buried the franchise to make sure there was no future success. While the movies leaned heavily on nostalgia and brought back all the original cast, they also introduced a new generation of heroes who would presumably carry the story forward. But in the 7 years since the Rise of Skywalker, that has failed to happen because nobody liked Disney's crap. Rey's spin-off movie is in development hell. It's never going to happen. Kylo Ren's solo adventure was killed by Disney executives. Yeah, it's never going to happen. And both John Boyega and Oscar Isaac seemingly wanted nothing to do with Star Wars because they knew it was now the kiss of death. The sequel trilogy was supposed to push Star Wars forward. Yeah, forward into some dystopian gay nightmare. And instead, it turned out to be a dead end. Thankfully, Disney still has Baby Yoda.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Which is hopefully going to convince the boomers and their Gen A grandkids to return to the theaters when The Mandalorian and Grogu arrives in theaters later this month. But after that, the future of Star Wars has never seemed more precarious. And wrong again because, the Mandalorian and Grogu is tracking for the worst opening weekend in Star Wars history because it is all over. Nobody wants to see Disney Wars anymore. It's over. The whole franchise needs to be put on ice for a decade. Give people time to get over their hate for what Disney has done, and then just say, oops, we're now counting all Disney projects, all of them, from The Force Awakens on down to The Mandalorian, and say, none of these things are canon, we're erasing them, that's it, and start fresh. I don't see that happening, but that would be what they would need to do to try and salvage the franchise. And I don't even know if it can. And the saddest part about this is Star Wars would likely have turned into this never-ending mythos that could have stayed in American pop culture for generations to come. But there's a real chance that the damage that Disney has done may mean that the older generations will not transfer their love of Star Wars to the next generation of kids and just let it die. And if that happens, it's all over. So let's hope that doesn't happen. I don't know what Disney can do to fix this crap.